I know you've been fighting. I know you've been holding on. And I know there are moments when you feel like you've got nothing left. But listen to me. God sees you. He knows exactly where you are. He knows what you've been through, what you're carrying, and how much it's been weighing on you. You've prayed for strength, but it still feels heavy. You've believed for breakthrough, but the doors are still closed. And maybe, just maybe, you're asking God, do you even see me? Oh, he sees you. And not just in the way people see you. Not just in the way they notice when you're smiling on the outside, but breaking on the inside. No. God sees you down to your soul. And he doesn't just see you. He's been sustaining you the whole time. You may be tired, but you are not alone. You may be weary, but you are not abandoned. And just because it's hard right now doesn't mean God is done with you. God sees you even in the struggle. You may not always feel him, and sometimes it seems like your prayers are met with silence. But silence is not absence. Just because you don't hear him doesn't mean he's not speaking. Just because you don't see movement doesn't mean he's not working. The hardest seasons often come with the loudest doubts. And that's exactly when faith is tested the most. When life is pressing you from every side, it's easy to wonder if God has stepped back. When nothing is changing, when the weight of circumstances feels unbearable, you might ask, God, where are you? But the very fact that you're still standing, still breathing, still pushing forward is proof that he has never left. He's sustaining you in ways you don't even recognize. The enemy wanted you to break, but you're still here. The storm tried to take you out, but you're still standing. The presence of struggle doesn't mean the absence of God. In fact, some of the greatest moves of God happen in the most difficult moments. Think about the stories in Scripture. So many of them begin with a struggle. Joseph was thrown into a pit before he was elevated to a palace. Moses had to wander the wilderness before he led the people to freedom. David was running for his life before he ever wore the crown. The struggle isn't evidence that God has abandoned you. More often than not, it's evidence that he's preparing you. When you feel like you're barely holding on, remember that God sees what you're going through. He's not distant. He's not disconnected. He's not overlooking your pain. He is near to the brokenhearted. He is the God who never slumbers, which means he hasn't taken his eyes off you for a single second. Even in your exhaustion, he is sustaining you. Even in your confusion, he is guiding you. Even in your frustration, he is strengthening you. You may be walking through a valley, but valleys don't last forever. The enemy would love to convince you that this is where your story ends. He wants you to believe that the struggle is permanent, that the heaviness will never lift, that the prayers will never be answered. But the enemy is a liar. What you're facing right now is temporary, but what God is building in you is eternal. Faith isn't about seeing, it's about trusting. If you could see the way out, it wouldn't require faith. If you had all the answers, it wouldn't be called belief. Faith is holding on when everything in you wants to let go. It's choosing to believe in the goodness of God when nothing about your situation looks good. It's choosing to stand firm when everything in you wants to sit down and give up. God doesn't just see your struggle. He sees what's on the other side of it. He sees the testimony that will come from this test. He sees the strength that will rise from this season. He sees the way this moment will shape your faith for the future. Nothing is wasted with God. The pain isn't wasted. The tears aren't wasted. The nights you spent crying out to him are not wasted. He collects every tear. He hears every prayer. He holds every moment. Right now, it might feel like you're stuck. It might feel like nothing is changing. But just because you don't see immediate results doesn't mean God isn't moving. Some of the biggest miracles start as the smallest shifts. Some of the most powerful breakthroughs begin in the quiet places where no one else see. You might be asking, God, why am I still here? Why am I still dealing with this? Why haven't you stepped in yet? But what if God is working on something bigger than you can comprehend? What if what feels like a delay is actually divine preparation? What if he's building something in you that's even greater than what you're praying for? When you feel overlooked, remember that God sees you. When you feel forgotten, remember that he knows your name. When you feel like you've been left behind, remember that he is ordering your steps. He's not just watching from a distance. He's walking with you in the midst of it. Every step, every struggle, every silent prayer, he sees it all, and he is not finished yet. Your weariness is not a sign of weakness. You've been carrying so much, pushing through challenges, standing firm in faith, even when everything around you has tried to knock you down. And now, you're tired. Not just physically, but deep down in your soul. The kind of tired that sleep can't fix. The kind of exhaustion that comes from fighting battles no one else sees. But hear this, being tired doesn't mean you're failing. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you don't have enough faith. It means you've been in the fight. It means you've been pressing forward when it would have been easier to quit. It means you've been showing up even when you felt empty, and God sees that. He honors that. He is not disappointed in your weariness. He is proud of your endurance. So many times we think that if we were stronger, we wouldn't feel this way. We assume that if our faith was greater, we wouldn't be struggling like this. But the truth is, faith doesn't eliminate weariness. It helps you keep going despite it. Even Jesus in his most difficult moments felt the weight of exhaustion. In the Garden of Gethsemane, he prayed with such intensity that he sweat drops of blood. He knew the road ahead was hard. He knew the burden he was carrying, and yet he kept moving forward. If the Son of God himself experienced deep weariness, why do you think you should never feel tired? Why do you think that being exhausted means you're doing something wrong? It doesn't. It means you've been in the fight, and the fight has been real. But the good news is you are not fighting alone. God has a way of strengthening his people in ways that don't always make sense. He doesn't just remove the struggle. Sometimes he gives you the strength to endure it. Sometimes he allows you to reach the end of yourself so you can discover the depths of his power. His word says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. That means the very place where you feel the most exhausted is where God's strength can shine the brightest. Maybe you've been thinking, I just don't know if I can keep doing this. Maybe you've been feeling like you're at your breaking point, but what if you're not breaking? What if you're being built? What if God is stretching you, refining you, strengthening you, not to break you, but to prepare you? The enemy wants you to believe that your exhaustion means you're alone, that no one sees how hard you've been fighting, that no one understands the weight you're carrying. But that's a lie. God sees, God knows, and he has not left you. He has been sustaining you, even in the moments you felt like you had nothing left. You're not weak. You're not failing. You're not forgotten. You're a fighter, and even fighters get tired. But the difference between those who quit and those who see victory is the willingness to keep showing up. Even in the exhaustion, even in the doubt, even when nothing seems to be changing. God is not waiting for you to be stronger before he moves. He's moving right now. He's holding you up even when you feel like you're about to fall. He's strengthening you in ways you can't even see. And when the time is right, you will realize that what felt like the hardest season of your life was actually the season where God was building something unshakable within you. Strength doesn't always look like power. Sometimes it looks like perseverance. We have this idea that strength means being unshaken, never struggling, never feeling weak. We assume that strong people don't break down, don't question, don't have moments where they want to quit. But real strength isn't found in the absence of weakness. Real strength is refusing to stop even when you feel empty. The world glorifies a kind of strength that looks invincible, loud, dominant, always in control. But God's kind of strength doesn't always look the way we expect. His strength often shows up in the quiet places, in the moments when you don't feel strong at all. Strength isn't just about being able to push through with ease. It's about pressing on, even when everything in you wants to stop. Think about the people in the Bible who displayed great strength. It wasn't always about physical power or dramatic victories. It was about perseverance. Noah built an ark for years before seeing a single raindrop. Job endured unimaginable suffering but refused to turn his back on God. Paul kept preaching even after being beaten, imprisoned, and shipwrecked. Their strength wasn't in their ability to avoid hardship. It was in their willingness to keep trusting God through it. You might not feel strong right now. You might feel like you're barely making it. Maybe you're not seeing progress. Maybe you're wondering if the fight is even worth it. But the fact that you're still standing is proof that God's strength is already at work in you. If the enemy had his way, you would have given up by now. If you were as weak as you feel, you wouldn't still be fighting, but you are. And that is strength. Sometimes strength looks like showing up when you don't feel like it. Sometimes it looks like praying when you don't have the words. Sometimes it looks like getting out of bed when everything in you wants to stay down. It's not about how powerful you appear. It's about how faithful you remain. God never promised that the journey would be easy, but he did promise that his strength would carry you through. His word says, those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Notice that it doesn't say they will never feel weak. It doesn't say they will always be soaring. Sometimes they will just be walking. And yet even in that, God is sustaining them. So don't despise the season you're in just because it doesn't look powerful. Don't believe the lie that real strength means never struggling. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply refuse to give up. The battle may be long, the road may be hard, but strength isn't found in how easy the journey is. It's found in your decision to keep going. You've been praying, you've been believing, you've been standing in faith, expecting God to move, but the doors are still closed. The breakthrough hasn't come, the situation hasn't changed, and now the waiting feels unbearable. You start to wonder, did I miss something? Did I take a wrong turn? Has God forgotten me? But what if this delay isn't denial? What if God isn't just making you wait? What if he's making you ready? We tend to see waiting as wasted time, but God sees it as preparation. He's not just watching your struggle. He's using it. He's shaping you, refining you, strengthening you for what's next. What feels like a setback is actually setting you up for something greater. What feels like a pause is actually a process. Look at Joseph. He had a dream that God would elevate him, but before he ever stepped into the palace, he was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, wrongfully imprisoned. It didn't happen overnight. It took years. And I guarantee there were nights when Joseph wondered, God, did you forget what you showed me? But what Joseph didn't see in the moment was that every step of his journey was preparing him for the position God had for him. The pit wasn't punishment, it was preparation. The prison wasn't a mistake, it was a training ground. By the time Joseph stepped into his destiny, he wasn't just gifted, he was ready. God does the same thing with us. He won't put you in a place before you're prepared for it. He won't open doors you're not yet strong enough to walk through. He loves you too much to elevate you before you have the character to sustain it. So if it feels like God is taking too long, maybe he's doing more in you than you realize. Maybe he's developing the faith you'll need for the next level. Maybe he's teaching you how to trust him when things don't make sense. Maybe he's stretching you so that when the opportunity comes, you won't just step into it. You'll thrive in it. The waiting season is never wasted. Every struggle, every delay, every unanswered prayer is shaping you. And one day you'll look back and realize that the thing you thought was holding you back was actually building you up. There comes a point when the weight becomes too much. When you've done everything you know how to do, when you've prayed, you've fought, you've held on, and you still feel like you're barely making it. Maybe you're there right now. Maybe you're at the place where your strength is gone and you don't know how to take another step. But here's what you need to know. You were never meant to carry it all on your own. God is not expecting you to have all the answers. He's not waiting for you to figure everything out before he steps in. He already knows what you're facing, and he already knows how he's going to bring you through. The only thing he's asking from you is trust. Trust when it doesn't make sense. Trust when you don't see the way forward. Trust when you feel like you're falling apart, because the truth is, God's strength has always been carrying you, whether you realized it or not. Think about the moments you didn't think you would survive, the seasons that should have broken you, the times when you felt completely lost, and yet somehow you're still here. Not because you had it all together, not because you figured it out on your own, but because God was holding you up the whole time. There's a reason the Bible says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." God never asked you to carry this weight alone. He's not standing at a distance waiting for you to get it right. He is near, he is present, and he is carrying you even when you don't feel it. So stop trying to carry what was never yours to hold. Stop thinking you have to be strong enough on your own. God's strength is made perfect in your weakness. And right now, in the moments when you feel like you have nothing left, he is carrying you forward. Your breakthrough is closer than you think. You may not see it yet. You may not feel it, but that doesn't mean God isn't moving. Right now, in ways you can't perceive, he's orchestrating things behind the scenes. He's shifting circumstances, aligning opportunities, preparing hearts. He's working in places you haven't even considered yet. But here's the challenge. Breakthrough rarely looks like what we expect. We want an instant change, a sudden shift, a moment where everything just clicks into place. But often, breakthrough comes in stages. It happens little by little, piece by piece, until one day you look back and realize that God had been moving all along. This is why you can't afford to give up now. The enemy would love to convince you that this is the end, that your prayers aren't working, that your faith isn't making a difference, that nothing will ever change. But the enemy is a liar. The struggle you're in right now is not your final chapter. The battle you're facing is not where your story ends. Think about the moments in Scripture when people were closest to their breakthrough. The Israelites were trapped between the Red Sea and an approaching army, but their way out was moments away. Joshua and his army marched around Jericho for 6 days without seeing any results, but on the 7th day, the walls fell. Peter fished all night and caught nothing, but with one word from Jesus, his nets were suddenly overflowing. What if they had given up too soon? What if they had walked away right before their miracle? You don't know how close you are. You don't know how near your breakthrough might be. Just because you haven't seen movement yet doesn't mean God isn't about to shift everything. He's the God who makes a way where there is no way. The God who speaks and the winds obey. The God who can turn your darkest night into the greatest testimony. So hold on, keep praying, keep believing, keep trusting, because the very thing you've been waiting for might be just on the other side of this moment. And when the time is right, nothing will be able to stop what God has planned for you. So don't quit now. Don't let the weight of this season convince you that it's over. Don't mistake waiting for abandonment or struggle for defeat. God sees you. He knows exactly what you're carrying, exactly how tired you are, exactly how much you've been holding on when everything in you wanted to let go. And he's not finished with you. The story isn't over. The battle hasn't been lost. The breakthrough is coming. The strength you need is already on the way. The doors that seem shut forever are about to open. The prayers that felt unheard have been working behind the scenes this whole time. You may be weary, but you are not alone. You may be struggling, but you are not abandoned. And when the time is right, you'll see what God was doing all along. So take a deep breath. Keep walking. Keep trusting, because he who promised is faithful, and he will never fail you.